It might not look like much sitting here on the hood of the 280Z, but these parts that we get directly from Japan are going to seriously improve the way the Datsun looks. Let's get them installed. So what's going on, guys? Back to Block Garage, obviously working on the 280Z like usual. Now that we have this thing completely covered in epoxy primer, every surface on the car has been stripped and primed, we can start working on some of the more fun stuff. It's time to start doing the body work, getting all the panels smoothed out, but part of getting the body ready is to put our stuff we got from Japan on. So we got a front air dam here. All of this stuff came from Japan, by the way. I ordered it from rhdjapan.com. I went over it a few videos ago, unboxed the stuff, and actually it might have been the last video. I think I might have included the clip in the last video. But anyways, we got a front air dam here from Kameari. That company, from what I've seen, they mostly do engine parts, especially old Nissan stuff. Very high quality stuff from what I've seen, and they make this front bumper. It's the same basically as the MSA Type 1 air dam, but way better quality. So everything I've read about the stuff you can get here in America, at least the entry-level stuff, is that the fitment is terrible. Spend a ton of time trying to get it to fit right. So since I was buying other stuff from Japan, the biggest thing was these flares and that spoiler. I figured I'd get the air dam at the same time too. It's just fiberglass. I didn't want carbon fiber on anything, but we already checked this out, like I said, I believe in the last video, and it looks very high quality. It does have a couple, it's got a crack right there, and I think that's just in the gel coat, which is not a big deal. We got to try that on. That'll probably come, we might have to do that before the flares actually. We got two more parts here from, well, also from Japan, right? The brand is Marugen Shoukair. I don't know how it's actually pronounced. And these are, from what everybody says, if you're buying flares, these are the ones you want to buy. And I can at least somewhat attest to that. I just held them up to the car a few weeks ago, and the fitment is great. So you can see in this one, see how that back edge is not perfectly straight? It's because they are shaped to fit the curve of the fender. With the cheaper ones, and actually, to be honest, from what I've seen with the more expensive ones made here in America, is that's not the case. So I did get a cheap set of eBay flares because I wanted to try them out, mostly to see if the size was going to work for me with my wheels. Get this off here. And if you look, and if you can look down that, let's put it over here. It's perfectly flat on the back. So to make it fit on the fender, you have to curl it up around, and the fitment's not good. It's not good at all. I'll show you guys when we get to it. I'll show you what they look like on there. Fitment's terrible. They're cheap though. They're very cheap. I think these were like $60, something like that. But you're going to spend a ton of time getting them to fit okay, and they'll still never fit good. So these ones here fit amazing. Now, the parts themselves are not expensive. I think it was like $110, $120 once you convert it from yen to US dollars. Shipping is basically the same price. Basically doubles the price, at least to me, with the cheapest shipping method, which I think was, if I remember, it was either FedEx or UPS. Basically doubled the price just to ship them over here. But the shipping is quick. I got them in less than a week from when I ordered them, which is very good. So we got the Marugen Shoukair fender flares. We also got their 3-piece wing. I specifically wanted the 3-piece wing because I like the look better. So the normal 1-piece wing would obviously go on the hatch here. It bolts to the hatch and then just kind of sit over the rear quarter here. And it ends right about there. It looks good. I think it does look good. But I prefer this. So this piece obviously goes on the hatch. And then you've got 2 pieces that go right here. So that part is mounted solid on the car. You can see it follows the body lines and everything. Should be, I mean, from everything I've seen, this thing looks amazing. These are very, very sturdy. Even in here, they've got extra. I mean, they obviously fiberglass these mounting straps or whatever with the bolts in them to there, and they even put a layer of fiberglass from the front edge to the back edge once it's done to keep it sturdy this way, so it doesn't try to squish in on itself. Keeps it solid, and this thing is solid. It's very solid. Also, with the flares, so these are both Marugen Shoukair flares or parts here. These are the front bumper's Kameari because Marugen Shoukair, at least I could not find a listing for a front bumper or a front air dam from them. But anyways, so they offer a few different flares that you can buy, and I've got the deluxe. They're called the deluxe. They are thicker fiberglass than their standard. I wanted them because it's going to be a street car. You never know what can happen. I didn't want something super lightweight that I'm going to crack or anything like that, but you can get those. The price difference is negligible. And these are the standard size ZG flare, which I think it's 2-inch in the front, 3-inch in the rear, and that is total width, you know, from all the way from back here to over here, which is not how much it actually increases the width of the car. They list on the website what the actual increased width is. Anyways, that's what we went with. I highly recommend going with this stuff. Customer service I had with RHD Japan was, I'm guessing that stands for Right Hand Drive Japan. I don't know. Anyways, the customer service with them was amazing. Once you decide what you want, you put in a request to find out what the lead time is. Some stuff they have right in stock in their warehouse. Some stuff they have to go and purchase for you, and then they ship it over. You know, they grab it from the manufacturer there in Japan. Some stuff is made to order. So I did have to wait about a month to get the spoiler and the air dam, because the spoiler they made to order. They did not keep this in stock anywhere. So they made that specifically for me and shipped it with the bumper, and I got some other stuff too. Got some Cusco strut bars with it too, trying to save on shipping. Anyways, I've probably rambled way too much, which, I mean, I got my Taylor Ray shirt on today, enough jibber jabber. So let's get started here. I am going to start with the flares first, because that's going to be the most involved. We're going to have to fit them on here, drill some holes, put some, what do you call them? Put some rib nuts in, and we're going to have to cut the fender, front and rear. And we're going to have to do some welding on the rear too. So let's get started, jump right in and getting those fender flares installed. So I went ahead and drilled our holes because they don't come pre-drilled. You know, pretty easy to do. So it fits on here just like this. This right here is where it folds in. So we want to line it up with that body line right there. It's going to go on something like that. Something right about, there's no definite body line up here on the front like there is on the rear. But it's going to go something like that. But I think because it overhangs down on the front air dam down here, I think we're going to fit the front air dam first. So let's go to that. Well, I've been messing around with this front bumper for a bit, and to be honest, at this point, I'm taking back everything I said about how that thing was going to fit. I'm not very happy with it, especially for the amount of money I spent on shipping. It doesn't want to fit basically anywhere. The whole curvature right here is just, it's not right. It's too shallow. You know, it doesn't curve enough. I've got it vice gripped on right now, just on both sides, and it's setting on the bracket right there underneath. But I mean, it's going to fit. It's going to fit fine. The dimensions and everything look good. I don't know if it's maybe just from sitting, the end kind of folded out instead of being as curved as it normally would. But I've been struggling for a while trying to get this thing to get up on there somewhat where it should be. But I'm going to get a little bit of hardware here, and we're going to throw a few bolts in it just to get it held in place good. Because it's going to work, and it's going to work fine. I think I need to trim off right here. There's that, you can't see it right now, but there's a bracket that runs right along the bottom here to get support underneath this, and right now this lip is hitting on this bracket that comes out to it. It sits, basically I need to trim a little bit off right here. Not sure that I'm going to do that just yet. Probably should, to be honest, but you can see if I pull this down where it's got to be, it pulls up on that, so I probably should do that. but we'll get it. We'll get it. And I want to finish this before we start on the flares, just because it affects that back there. Yeah, I don't know if there's a way to get fiberglass to flex good and hold its shape. I think once it's formed, it's formed. Definitely not an expert though. But anyways, enough rambling. Let me do a little bit here. We'll throw some bolts in it. I'll trim that down there probably because that definitely needs it. We'll do that. Yeah, let's do that. Well, I got that front bumper or air dam mounted on. It was a bit fiddly because this not being the right shape, not being the right curve, it was really hard to get everything lined up right, and this thing's sitting there, and it's not. I'm not done. It's just up there, temporary hardware. I got some better stuff coming, but we did get it in. It's all nice and lined up right here, right with our edge of our fender and this body line right here. Because I had to basically pull this out. You know, we got this lined up here, and then use this bolt to pull this out because it was way in. It's actually pulling in on the headlight bucket here. So I don't know. I'm definitely not experienced with this stuff. Does anybody know? Is there a way to reshape fiberglass like that? Like I don't know if you can heat it up, get it warm, and form it around something, or just bend it and to get that curve back in it like it should be, because it's obviously it's the right shape and everything. It fits great now that I've got it in there. But this curve here where it's too shallow, so if it's tight here, it's basically sticking out here. I need to curve it in this way, and instead of using this to get it shaped right, which it works and it can be done, I can make everything look good. Anyways, time to move on. Now that we got that in place, we can get our flares on. I don't know why I did this. I really should have. I mean, it's not a big deal, but instead of drilling those holes out, it would have been better to leave them just the pilot hole, because then I could use my Clecos to hold this in place. But oh well, it is what it is at this point. Let's make sure we can get this thing perfectly lined up right where we want it, and we'll mark some holes. I already spent a bunch of time getting that exactly where I want it, marked my holes, and I also put the other side on at the same time. That way, in case there's any tweaking, but I've got them both basically exactly in the same position, side to side. I just used various measurement methods, measured from maybe the top of the fender here down to here in a couple spots, measured like this distance here to here. Visually, you can see where they end. Same thing here. I measured basically bottom of the fender down and this way, and I mean, you're never going to see if it's a little bit off side to side, but that way it's as close as we can get it. And you'll have a little bit of wiggle room anyway, depending on how big you drill these holes. But so I guess it's time to commit, drill the holes in the fenders so we can put some rib nuts in. So we got our pilot holes drilled. We're going to be using 6mm rib nuts. So for those, you need 23/64 hole. All right, with those all drilled, I did put a little bit of primer in here. Just put some primer, from a spray can on a little brush and brush in there. That way we don't have bare metal. So we can put our rib nuts in. If you guys haven't used rib nuts before, that's what they look like. This is the tool, and basically it just pulls it, which expands it behind there, kind of like a rivet does. And you got a nice captured nut in there. You don't have to worry about holding the nut behind there by hand, which it wouldn't be too bad here on the front, but on the rear, obviously you can't, because you have, that'll be on the inside, because you got the rear quarters. just pull it till it gets tight, because you can break that stud or whatever pretty easily if you pull too hard. That's it. So before I go and bolt that on, I want to show you guys the difference more between those good formed flares and these cheap eBay flares. These will work fine if that's what you need to use, but as I said before, they are not actually shaped to the car at all. They're even though they list them as for these cars, they're basically universal. So you just put this up there. I mean, look at that. I mean, it's not even, you got a huge gap back here. You have to form that in there, and you'll never get that gap right. And also the distance across isn't even right. You can see it's way over there. You'd have to form that in like that. And you can do it if that's what you want to do. They will work if you want to go cheap. Save some money, that's fine. But they definitely do not fit as well. So just be forewarned if that's what you're going to go with. I highly recommend these ones though. And actually these bolts came with that cheap eBay kit. And I'm using them for now. They seem fine. I probably will get some other ones though. Just because the flares are going to be black. I don't really want the silver hardware sticking out. You know, just for aesthetics. I'll probably see if I can find some black ones. But they will definitely work for now. There we go, simple as that. It's really a pretty simple process. And they fit great. I cannot wait to see how these look with my rotors on there. You know, that's going to look so much better with the right wheel on there. But that's, I mean, we don't have any gaps around the edge. Everything fits nice and tight because they're formed to the fender. Perfect. So we're going to move on to the rear. All right, skip ahead. I got this side on. We got the front all on. I did the other side too. Got the back on. I wanted to mess around with this side. The back is not quite as straightforward as far as placement as the front because you don't have quite as much of a curve here at the body line. So this isn't as curved, you know, at one point here. But basically what I did, line this up, this bottom edge just above like half a centimeter-ish above this body line here. I see that pretty common. And then I basically had it right level with the factory lip inside on the quarter there. And then up here, just kind of pulled it in. It did need to pull in just a little bit so that like this, the flat area where your screw goes starts hitting on where this curves out because the factory quarter comes straight forward and then starts to curve out and then flat here for the edge, and then obviously it bends in. So basically, you know, you wouldn't want it way out here because it would, you know, make everything crooked. But that's basically how we are. Like I said, right lined up. I took a level right across there, and it's good. So I got the other side ready to go. What I did is I made a pattern to start on that front edge to help me get it placed. Basically, obviously the flare wasn't on, but I had this on here, lined up my tape with this body line here, marked my hole, and then we transfer over here, and I just reversed it, whoosh, put it there, and then use a little bit of eyeball measuring from there. I measured up from the body line to here to get it the same distance. I measured here to here to get it the same distance, and just kind of eyeballed it because it's not going to be perfect. So we're close here. I've got it right where I want it. Actually, we're nice and level here. Got the back where we want it. I measured across right here, here to here. So we got the same distance forward to back. So now I just got to drill some holes. Easy as that. Did want to show you one thing real quick on a few of these holes. This one, and this one on both sides. It will hit the inside structure. I don't know if I can get the camera in there. Man, there's so much red paint dust. That's not overspray. That's just dust from me when I grind all the paint off the outside. So that'll come off. But you might not be able to see in there. any of them. If we do this. All right, right there, you can see the back side of the rib nut. That's because that inside structure is just a little bit too close. So I had to drill through both sides. And just one tip, make sure you drill through your pilot hole all the way, because if you try and get that backside hole, once you've already drilled here and you use your full-size bit, it's a good chance of making this hole too big, because it does not take much in the sheet metal to expand the hole with the side of your drill bit, and then your rib nut might not fit. So just be careful. My plan is I'm just going to cover the back side of those in seam sealer. Should be fine. Just want to keep the water out of getting in the car, basically. But we are not done. We still got to cut the old fender, because inside that fender lip is still there, but you go to lower the car or the suspension compresses, it's going to slam into that fender. Your tire is. So we need to trim that off as much as we can. Start by putting a line on the outside here at the top of the flare. Now, we want to measure down 1 inch from the top edge here, because basically that flat portion where the bolts all go on is about 1 inch. So we're going to trim off it off about 1 inch away from that line all the way around. Now you guys probably can't see that line on there because it's Sharpie on black paint, but I can. I'm going to mark it real quick. And what I use is just my calipers here and just make a bunch of scratches every way around. Then I just take some tape and give myself a nice rough line all the way around following those marks. And then up front here, we're going to trim it right at the back, right at the very edge where that bottom corner comes in, basically straight up from there. And now I'm going to trim this off with a jigsaw, because you can get a nice, tight, rounded edge around there. Worked very good on the other side. This edge down here, you'd be left with a sharp 90-degree bend. I just trimmed the other side off real quick with my cutoff disc, just to give it a better angle. Now we'll just clean this edge up a little bit, get rid of the sharpness on it, and if you have any waves in your cut, just to make it look a little nicer. And that's it. Let's throw the flare back on. So it's a pretty simple process, right? But now we got to move on to the back. That's a little more complicated. So on the back, I mentioned it's a bit tougher, a bit more work. We have 2 layers here we got to get through. You got the outer structure here, and you got the inner fender in here. So we got to cut through here, and we also got to cut through in there, and then we have to weld them together. Because if you don't, you got absolutely zero support here. It just pushes in and out. So I did the other side already because I wanted to test it. What I found, I took my time on the other side because I didn't know exactly how we were going to do it. The big thing is you don't want to move the body, the quarter panel here. You don't want this to move in and out when you're working on everything, because then your dimensions on the car are all off. So you got to keep this where it is and make the inner fender well move out to it where you can, so you can weld it together, because there's going to be a gap there. So I didn't use the jigsaw. You could get through both layers of metal all the way around with the jigsaw. However, I was worried that I might cut off too much of the inner fender, and then I got nothing to weld out here, because again, you got to bend it out. So I'm going to cut off the outside and then get rid of this down here, because just cut through just the outside here, and then I'll cut through both layers down here somewhere, and then I can use that to judge where we need to cut the inner layer at the final position so that we can weld it together. And then I'll show you how I get it together. I found a good idea from another guy doing it on YouTube, so I'll show you guys the technique. But we got to get that cut first. We're going to be making some sparks, so I'm going to get my welding blanket in here so that we don't get anything on our nice Apex and BC Racing suspension. What I found worked the best was just a cutoff disc. Just got to take your time, but it does get around the curves pretty easily. Tired of those sparks hitting me in the face. So we got our nice cut around out here, basically the finished cut. And as you can see, I cut off further in here because the two layers, right, they're welded at the seam, you know, this seam down here. So instead of trying to cut all those loose, all those spot welds, something for something that doesn't matter, just get rid of them now. It was easy to get around there with the jigsaw because we didn't care too much about that cut, just didn't want to affect this at all. So now we need to attach this to this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim this piece all the way around there, just like the other side. And what I found on the other side is I was going to come and cut maybe, or actually I did cut maybe like a 1/4 of an inch-ish down from that one. I was going to try and fold it out. I didn't like how it was going to work because I, tried hammering that out and stuff. I tried putting a slit in it to get rid of some of the tension. And I still felt like I was going to have to put too much force in it to get it out to this. And then if you kind of hold it out there and tack it, it's going to try and pull it back in once you relax, let your pressure off of it. And I didn't want that to happen because that's very important that we keep this where we want it. Unless you want more width, you could pull that out if you wanted to get more width, to a degree, but I don't want to do that. That's what we're using the flares for. So we're going to cut right along that edge basically, and then I'll show you what's next. And there is a bunch of the OEM seam sealer in here, tar type stuff, so yeah, it's not good to breathe. I probably honestly should be wearing a respirator, but I'm not. So let's just trim around that same technique as we did with this, because we don't want to mess with this with the jigsaw hammering up and down. So now this is what we're left with. You can see the outer skin that we don't want to move and the inner skin here, and we need to join those together without disturbing the location of the outer skin. So what I found, I saw somebody else with this idea on YouTube, and I thought it was a good idea. So we got some little, I believe, 1/4 inch rod here, and we're just gonna basically place it in there like that, and we're gonna weld them together. It'll fill that gap without disturbing anything until we get down where it starts to get close here. Then we'll tap the outside out without disturbing the outside where we can't fit these. And it works quite well. So I cleaned everything up as good as I could already. You can't really get great inside between here, especially down here where they're joined. And there is some factory seam still there. It's pretty much rubber that they kind of melted in there, it looks like. So it's going to affect the welds, but there's nothing we can do. We'll clean everything up after. So let's get some of these welded in. Here we go. This is what we're left with. So we get it all the way welded all the way along. Now I didn't fully weld the whole thing. It's basically just spaced out tacks all the way around because one reason I feel it's just a waste of time. The bigger reason is every time you weld, you have a chance of warping the sheet metal. So since I don't believe it's necessary, it's better off, in my opinion, not to fully weld because we don't want to warp the sheet metal, especially now with all the work we've done to the car. So it's not staying like that though. So if you're doing this, it needs to be sealed up somehow. I am going to be obviously going to prime it with the epoxy primer that the rest of the car has. Just touch it up real quick. And then it's going to get seam sealed. So it'll be fully waterproof in theory once we get it seam sealed from the inside and the outside, because you can get at almost all of this from the inside. If you can see in there. And then from the back, so you can see it in there. That's where our seam is. So we can get at most of it from both sides. And now we're ready. Let's throw the fender flare back on and put it back on the ground. So fender flares are all on. It's really not that hard of a process. Just if you guys are doing this, take your time. Make sure you get those exactly where you want them to be. A lot of it is visual. You're gonna have to figure it out for yourself. But with these flares from Japan, the Marugen Shoukair, they fit way, way better than the cheap flares like I mentioned. But next up should be the spoiler. We gotta obviously put that on still, but I can't wait any longer. I'm gonna go get my wheels and we're gonna throw them on real quick and see just how good it looks. Woo, look at that. Holy shit, that makes it look so much better. Look at that fitment. Oh, that's perfect. Way better fitment, to be honest, than I thought it was gonna have. I thought we were gonna have to put a small spacer on the rear, but I mean, don't forget the final ride hide's not set. The alignment's completely off, so yeah, you can see you got way more camber on this side, and it tucks in a bit. So obviously that stuff all has to be adjusted. It's nowhere even close. The front, we got no engine in it, so it's sitting up high. I could lower it on the coilovers, but there's not really any point right now. We got a good look at what this thing's gonna look like. Damn. Very happy with the choice of wheels right now. It looks so good. Wish we had the spoiler on it already to get the full look, but very happy with that. Yeah, that looks amazing. So we're gonna put the spoiler on still. Let's get that done, and then we'll roll it outside and take a good look at it. All right, check this out. I figured it'd be easy getting the spoiler on. It's never as easy as you first think. So all we'd have to do is drill 6 holes on the hatch. I measured basically how far from the back, how far from the outside, transpose that to the hatch, center punched it, and was just about to drill. And I noticed something. These outside two, they line up right there with the edge of the hatch structure. If I were to drill through, the bolts would be like right there, which obviously is not going to work. So we got to fix that. I was thinking about it, and I think I figured out what I want to do. So you can see all they did is they glued these, whatever resin they use, I don't know what it is, to attach this metal strip to the fiberglass. They just put it too far out. If you went like basically an inch plus in, you'd be good. But they didn't, obviously. So we need to move these over here. I could cut this off, get some resin of the same kind, which I don't know what it is. I'd have to look up what I should use. Hopefully I wouldn't damage the fiberglass in the process, and reattach them back over here. By the way, these ones are fine. At least they look fine because there's nothing really right there that could hurt anything. The other option is just cut the bolts off. These are just bolts welded to a piece of plate. Cut those off, weld another plate over on top of it that sticks over this way with some bolts sticking out over here somewhere, which I think is the easier option and the better option for me, so that's what I'm going to try to do. All right, so here's what I came up with. Just welded a little bit on, a little plate on right there to extend it out. Obviously, we cut our studs off that were on there. Have some new holes with some bolts welded in. Same as over here. It was pretty easy, to be honest. Went nice and slow, though, basically one tack at a time. And I cooled it right down with the air because I didn't want to get this fiberglass and everything all hot. So we are good to go. Let's go drill some holes on the hatch. I got my step bit here because we're going to end up having to make those pretty big, I would guess, because that measuring that way and transferring it on here is not very specific. There's a lot of leeway, so plus we're going to need to move it around to get it lined up just right, but we'll start with a decent sized hole. Not very exact is the word I was looking for. Oh, let's see how close we got this. I have a feeling it's not going to go first try. That honestly is not that bad. Not that bad. Let's make our holes one size bigger and see what that does. Look at that. Look at that.
Well, would you look at that?
Mint. Happy with that. And I really didn't even need to make the holes that big. So, yeah, just that very unscientific method of getting those holes drilled worked out really good. Let's, well, one, I'm going to throw a couple nuts on there just so it doesn't fall off. But let's put our side pieces on. And we also have to do up here just to get the, I'm going to have to, you know, we got some screws that are going to go in there. So we're going to put some riv nuts in. I'll have to do the same thing on the side. But anyways, I'll throw some nuts on real quick. I'm going to drill those other holes and stick the side pieces on. Look at that. Got it all mounted. Well, somewhat. I didn't drill the holes or anything to put the riv nuts in yet. I'm going to hold off because it does need a little bit of tweaking, a little bit of work to get everything fitting just right. So I don't want to mess with that right now because if I get those a little bit off, the tolerance in the hole that they give for the screws is not a lot. So we're going to hold off until I know I get that where I want it. And I just threw a couple nuts on because it's even harder to get those nuts on the bottom than I anticipated. But we got it on, so we can actually get a look at the full look of the car. Let's go throw it outside so we can really see what it looks like. All right, check it out. It looks amazing. I even threw the taillights back in just so we can get the full effect. But even just throwing that up there, I mean, fitment, like I said, is a little bit off. This side needs a little bit of tweaking. It's not quite lined up. But that's not a big deal right now. We got it on. So, quick review. Flares. Fit great. Highly recommend those over the cheap flares. Front bumper or front air dam. Fits okay. So it can definitely be made to work. Like I mentioned, the dimensions are definitely right. It just needs some tweaking on the end. If anybody knows if I can reshape that fiberglass on the end, recurve it somehow so it'll stay, I'd like to know. As far as the spoiler, you can see we're a little bit off on our body lines here. We got a little bit of a gap there, but I think with some tweaking we can get it to work. Obviously you can't expect it to fit perfect. It's an aftermarket fiberglass part. Now, if you didn't really care too much, you could just throw it on and run it, but as you can see, it's pulled out right here. Just fill that in a little bit. Really not a big deal. You know, same thing, body lines, just a little bit off here. Not terrible. This we can't really judge on, one, because I don't have it pulled down in the front. You know, nothing is tight here, but also my hatch is very, very warped. It was warped before I did all that structural welding inside to make it so it wouldn't flex as much. Because after I got that done, it was basically straight. But once I took all the like 1/4 inch of Bondo off that they had on there, maybe not quite that much, maybe 1/8 inch. Once I took all that off, it was really wavy. And I don't think that happened for me welding. So we got to obviously straighten that out. I'll straighten as much as I can with a hammer and dolly. But there's definitely going to be filler back there. If you get the angle just right, you can see the waviness in it. But it is what it is. So very happy with how this thing looks. I mean, it does look a little bit funny right now. Just the color scheme, right? It's obviously not going to be like that. I'll just say it. It's basically going to be exactly opposite of what it is now. I'm really leaning towards painting the car white. I'm basically 100% convinced at this point. I'll go over that why at some point, but yeah, it's basically going to be the opposite of this. White body, the flares, and the spoiler are going to be black. All the trim's going to be black. Black mirrors, all that stuff. Black door handle. You know, basically everything we can make black for trim is going to be black. At least that's the plan. Might not happen right away. Might happen down the road. But, yeah. It looks so good just sitting there. You know, we got to get the engine in it. Obviously not right now, but get the engine in. Get it setting at ride height. See just how good it's going to look. Get the alignment done. You know, because everything's way off. Everything's just slapped together right now for the suspension. But anyways, that'll about do it for this one. Very big progress though on the 280Z. Happy with where it's at. It's not just a rusty pile of crap in the garage anymore. It's actually looking like I want the car to look like. Now we can see something positive, at least aesthetically, to keep motivated. You know, it's not just, like I said, a rusty pile of scrap metal sitting in here on the rotisserie, you know, full of holes and everything. We've actually, you can tell we've made progress now. So anyways, I'm going to end this one off here. I've done plenty of work. It honestly was more work than I anticipated, which seems to happen every week. But, you know, it is what it is. But if you're doing flares, I wouldn't be worried about cutting it at all. If you've done any fabrication, welding at all, it's not a big deal. I know some people don't even re-weld the rear. They just fiberglass it over because they don't have a way to weld. Supposedly that works fine. I don't know if I would rely on that, but it probably works. So anyways, end of this video. Let me know what you think about all that stuff. I'd really like somebody to tell me that answer on the fiberglass, whether we can reshape that bumper easily, you know, heating it or something. But other than that, hope you guys liked the video. Leave me some comments, and hopefully I see you in the next one.